I like pilots that don't sympathize with terrorists. Southwest has some explaining to do. Let's Go Brandon has become the MAGA version of Sieg Heil. Yes, it seems that Let's Go Brandon, a humorous take on a much more sinister statement, has become not only popular in the cultural lexicon, but has become quite the bane of the existence for many on the left. They tell us that it is rude, insulting to the president, and they appeal to our civility. This, of course, from the same people that brought you this. And insists quite correctly that it is protected speech and humor. However, in totality, one more piece of evidence that the left would not know a principled argument if and when it bit them in their sanctimonious ass. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to choke you with a big fat dose of the truth cock. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is time once again for the Sunday sermon. You just can't win with these folks. If it weren't for double standards, they'd have no standards at all. Show me the fire, people. Give me the drum roll. It's all in. Little punch in the face right out of the starting gate, as we like to open it up with every single week. Let's see what we got on board, man. We got Joel, we got Brother Jude Howe. Yes, my beloved son, Sergey loves you too because Russia. Добрый день. Brother Dennis Weimer, man, OG Reverend Ranger right there. Brother James Pearson, always good to have you on board, man. I see you love the Northwest. Now that we got the hooks in, just like Oksana, a little bit above you in the thread here. Now that we got the hooks in, we just got to nail you down. I'd bleed and die for the Lone Star too, brother, but you see why this is home. All right, man. Let me see. Bodie sick. No way, man. Right on. Cool. Glad to have you on board, Brother Aaron, of course. Nice shirt, Rev. Yeah. You like that. I'm representing. That's why I have to do that disclaimer, man. I don't want anybody coming back doxing later and going, hey, this coach has so-and-so sporting his colors. He's talking all this right-wing extremist lunacy. Brother David Longstreth, man, I keep sending you the doom, brother. The doom. Feel the power of the doom. Man, Ray Topolsky on board. Cool, man. We got to get Matt on here. As soon as I figure out how to do this guest thing, Matt is one of the first guys that I want to get on here to do the guest thing. We've had one guest in before. We had to do it live in studio. I'm still working my way through StreamYard, man, and developing some level of comfort with it. But yeah, man, he's definitely in line to be on here, man. I would love to do a weekly with Matt. I think the synergy of me and Matt working together on a political broadcast would just be outstanding. We had a phenomenal energy in the broadcast booth, and I think, we've talked about a podcast for years. I think it would be really, really special to make that happen. Brother Ryan will be joining us here in a little bit. Man, we got some stuff to get into. Some of it funny, some of it not so much. I wanted to open with that. You guys take a look at it. And, of course, the music. Got to give props to the bumper music, as always. The bumper music from a band called Red Desert out of the smoldering embers and ruins of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Why is that appropriate? Because every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. This might be one of those weeks. Who knows? But yeah, things have been interesting. But you'll notice that my energy is up. I'm in a good mood. Got a lot of good things going on a personal level. And looking at the world situation. Stacy Bond on board. Hey, man, right on. Kim loves the shirt. Of course she does. I want to share the story, but I can't do it without permission. which, and you got to admit, Damon, it's a great story. And right now, everybody's like, what? No, no. Uh, we're gonna leave that. That one's just for us. Me, Damon, and my favorite Valkyrie, Little Miss Kim. I hope she's watching with you there, Damon. Yeah. So the opener. We fade the bumper music out. We'll go ahead and jump into this thing. Yeah, Red Desert, man. I went back looking. You guys are probably aware of this. If you go back, I have almost the entire history of the Sunday sermons on my Facebook fan page, Reverend Bart. Um, I don't have all of them on YouTube because I didn't start streaming to YouTube until I just kept getting banned from Facebook. But the very first time that we used the Red Desert as the bumper music, I was just it was kind of a random thing. I really like the song. I really like the band. David's on board here. He knows I love the stoner bands, the doom bands, bands like Red Desert, Cal L, Dope Lord. Just the heavy, just gut stomping stuff like that. And the first time that I used as bumper music, it was at the onset of the COVID epidemic when Ryan was still calling this the COVID cast because it was basically all we were talking about in the early days. But I was that song was on and I was dancing around in an old Czechoslovakian gas mask, so. It could have been a Sunday sermon. It could have been a sex party at the Reverend's bunker. Who knows? I'll let you guys judge for yourself. Sometimes the line is very, very thin. But anyway, man, no, I'm glad we got folks on board. We got a couple of new faces, man. Let me see. Who did I see? I saw, Stacy's on board. I haven't, Stacy, you might have caught one before, but I haven't seen you in the comments before. So cool that you're on board and you're checking that out. And there was somebody, Bodie Sands is on. And, I haven't seen you before in the comments. So if you're here, guys, for the first time, or at least in the comments for the first time, you're digging what's going on. I appreciate you guys being on board. As always, I love it when you guys get out there and you share it with other people. Hey, man, there's a fat, toothless old cripple that rants and raves for an hour every Sunday. He's a kindred spirit. He's a like mind. Maybe you want to check him out. Maybe he's got something to offer you. Nina Hayden. Wow, haven't seen you in years, Nina. Nina, you're a sweetheart. Here is the thing, and I'm not trying to put you out there on Front Street, Nina. Nina is legitimately one of those people who just wants the world to be a better place. And I will leave it at that. I envy your optimism, Nina. I always have. You and I will never see eye to eye with regard to how this ends or with the nature of people or any of those things. But I have always envied your optimism and admired your will to almost just by sheer force of will to will the world into being a better place. I've always admired and envied that about you to a degree. So Nina, I'm glad that you're on board. James Pearson, let's see this. Nelda is always on with me. My better half is now a convert. Okay, cool, man. We will, in fact, we will appoint Nelda as sinner sister in chief. We will put her at the top of the rotation. So as Brother James is one of the original Reverend Rangers / OG prophets of doom, his lovely wife Nelda, who makes a phenomenal fresh grown garden salsa. My God, by the way, just brief little sidebar. And that was much appreciated at the bunker. By the way, Aaron got into some of that. Aaron's on board. He can tell you, it's like, oh, wow, that's monster stuff. But yeah, she's just been appointed sinner sister in chief. So here we go. Yes, well, Neil, it does make you the consummate cynic and pessimist, but that, nothing has really changed about that, has it, Neil? By the way, Neil Ross, if you guys didn't know, is my official quote collector, my official quote historian, and he is the keeper of the tomes of knowledge, and he has a whole folder that he's been collecting literally for over a decade now. I think, Neil, I might be off on that by 1 or 2 years, but I think it's over a decade he's been collecting these quotable Bart moments. And we will be, I know you hear this all the time. When's the book coming? When's the t-shirts coming? Bah, 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 bah. Guys, I'm a crane operator. I work, you know what I mean? But we are getting around to all this stuff, and there will be a book release called The Quotable Bart, Volume 1. I will be taking that folder, we'll be breaking it down into different categories and releasing it. And once we get it out there, you guys will be the first to know. So when I make that announcement, it's going to be on the fan page. If you have not friended me on the fan page yet on Facebook, go over and do that, because that's pretty much the anchor. You can follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook. You will be able to follow me as of the end of this week. You'll be able to follow me on Rumble as well, and BitChute for the replays. But the Facebook fan page currently is like where it's happening, at least until I get a dedicated Reverend Bart website together, which is also in the pipeline. But again, what do I always say? I'm just a crane operator with some opinions. That's my position in the food chain, and I'm holding on to it. But I work for a living, so sometimes that I may or may not have been gunning for that. That may or may not have been the end goal of giving her a shout. That may or may not have had a little something to do with it. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm thankful for all of my friends. For all of my friends, and for my friends that have become fans, and for my fans that have become friends, and everybody that lets me get on here and vent every week and makes me feel like less of a lone voice in the wilderness. I really appreciate every one of y'all coming out. I mean that from the heart. A couple of shout outs that I want to give, because we do this every week with our flagship sponsors. Got to give a shout out to Roman and Roxy and Allie and a bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. You can check him out on his website now that Jack Boots Dorsey has booted him off the Twitter format because of the testosterone driven commentary. Naked women, totally okay over there, but testosterone driven commentary isn't going to fly with Jack Dorsey, so he booted him off. But you can still check out his artwork and his testosterone driven commentary at opiumtales.com. Roman is one of my oldest and dearest friends. We go all the way back to the late 80s. Yeah, I'm fucking old. And of course, my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. They have had a tradition of being the guys that do my holiday turkey since 2013. They've been doing my holiday turkey, and we're going to continue that tradition this year. In the meantime, they have the long ship, their big, the Viking long ship, their big smoker truck. They're setting that up at American Gun and Pawn off of Sprague every Thursday there in Spokane. So if you guys are coming out of the Spoke, go see them. They start at 11 and they sell until they just run out. And sometimes they run, in fact, most of the time they run out pretty fucking quickly. They've been featured on that Guy Fieri Triple D show, Drive-In Diners and Dives. They've been featured on that. They're phenomenal. And on top of that, they're really great guys. They've been close friends of mine for a long time. They will be doing the holiday turkey again. I'll share, because it is a holiday today. First of all, I want to wish blessings of the Samhain on all of my pagan and heathen brethren. For those of you guys that know, I am bang bang a follower of the Asa True Path. I am an Asa True heathen by faith. That is my spiritual path, and this is the new year for us. I celebrated with my seasonal ritual this morning. I have another tradition that I go the entire month of October. The thing about our path is that there's nothing dogmatic. There's no holy text to our religion that demands that I do this. It's just something that I have chosen to do since 1992, is to remove all animal flesh products from my life for the duration of the month of October. In other words, from midnight on September the 30th until I do my ritual on the Samhain on the 31st of October, I consume no animal flesh products of any kind. No meat, no fish, no bugs, shrimp, crayfish, whatever, no bird, no nothing, no mollusks, anything that's got a heart and a pulse is eliminated for that entire month, both to keep me mindful of the old gods and to keep me mindful of the death and rebirth cycle. And right when I pop up with, and I'm talking about this, we got Pagan Demon 8X, and he's popping up, and I know that he knows a little something both of the Northern tradition and of the death and the rebirth ritual. And I'm glad to have you on board, man. I see you out there, buddy. I see you out there. I see you. So yeah, that was the thing. So this morning, I ended my monthly fast. This is a tradition that I've observed since 1992. It's probably my longest running um, spiritual tradition, my longest running tradition of any kind, really, in my life since 92. So this is the 29th year that I've done that. And then after I do my ritual and my meditation and my dedication and devotions in the morning, and we end that, then I go and gorge myself on some animal flesh. So, so I got myself a face full of animal flesh right around lunchtime. It was cool. Went to a little place here in this small town in Oregon where I'm currently staked out, and grabbed myself a steak. You know, I was ready to. I was ready to consume something that required murder, so so I got myself a face full of that. Uh, you like that, Michael Smith? By the way, Michael, James Pearson, who is also one of the top dogs with Blower in the Spear system, and a dear friend of mine, is also on board. He just got through teaching a big seminar out in Seattle, so we got him out here, Mike. We got one of the top dogs in the Spear system out here. We got the hooks in. We introduced him to the Northwest, and hopefully, I mean, he's still a Texan to the core, always will be. Maybe we've made him a slightly more reluctant Texan. Only time will tell. And of course, brother Mike is on. If you were digging the camera and the microphone that we have bumped up to, that's all Mike. And Mike has been a devout supporter of the program as well, and a dear friend. Mike, you will be happy to know that in one of the things about the Samhain is traditionally that is when the veil between the worlds is thought to be the thinnest, and to commune with those who have preceded you in death. That is, I mean, that's a tradition that's a tradition with a lot of pagan paths. But Mike, you will be happy to know that you could feel the professor's presence, man. You could feel it, and it was palpable. As well as some other good men who have preceded us into the Great Hall. So, yeah, good holiday. All right, so let's get back to happenings in Midgard, where the rest of us live, and we'll go ahead and get on with that. First thing that I want to knock out here is, let me get the sound queued up right here. We got to go with that ever popular segment, Ryan's Rabbit Hole. That's right, thunderous round of applause, Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Yes, indeed. My brother Ryan Jenkins, he's changed my life in a number of ways, man. He's single-handedly responsible for getting me into the crane trade, first of all. Let me bounce up here to banners. I'm still learning my way around this. So the Ryan's Rabbit Hole segment. He got me into the crane trade. He opened some doors for me and enabled me to change my life. And as I was discussing last week, when you look at guys like me and Ryan, larger than your average guy, some questionable tattoos, the first thing you look at and you think is generally not, oh well, here's a deep thinker and a prominent intellectual. But Ryan is a repository of things obscure and esoteric, and every week we get a little rabbit hole that will send you down, just a little thing, little poke into your mental bread oven, something for you to explore on your own time. And you follow that rabbit hole down as deep as you go. But this week, the rabbit hole in question is the P versus NP problem. And when he bounced this off of me, I was like, bro, I think we're going a little too deep. Mathematics of any sort, while they are the universal language, are also the bane of my fucking existence. I mean, you put me into conceptual theory and this sort of thing, but you start drilling hard numbers and the eyes glaze over and the teeth start grinding, and so I realize that I'm being subjective. But the P versus NP problem, so just Google that, P versus NP, and you get to follow that rabbit hole down as far as you want. I'll give you the basis. It's in the realm of computer science, okay? And some of you Sudoku junkies like my wife out there would be familiar with this as well. Basically, it lines out like this. It asks whether every problem whose solution can be quickly verified can also be solved quickly. So already we're already into some pretty heady territory. I know that if Roman's on board, Roman's like, dude, that's right in my fucking wheelhouse. And of course it is, because you're a fucking mathematician and a programmer, you fuck. And I'm insanely jealous of the way your brain works. So some of you out there, the P versus MP problem is going to be right in your wheelhouse, and you're going to want to follow that rabbit hole down deep. And some of you who are, yes, there's a lot of implications but in computer algorithms, right? In the development of artificial intelligence, game theory, different ball game, quantum theory, cryptology. It takes you down a path where you're gonna, I mean, depending on how far down you want to go down that rabbit hole, that P versus MP problem is going to take you in some unusual directions. So again, this is why we present stuff like this. It's just a little poke into the bread oven. You follow the direction on this that you wish to take it and go down that line. But again, some of the implications for AI, and my thoughts on AI. Everybody has the gee whiz factor that they think the future is going to be like the Jetsons. I kind of gravitate more towards the Terminator mythology, but that's me. But yeah, with regard to mathematics, cryptography, artificial intelligence, some of the higher end quantum stuff, the P versus NP problem. Take it and follow it. That is going to be Ryan's rabbit hole of the week. So thank you, Ryan, again for twisting my brain up in a particularly demented way this week. There you are, Ryan. I was waiting for you to show up. So you got here just in time. So yeah, brother Ryan, again, thanks. The rabbit hole has actually become a really popular segment, and I've had a lot of people comment just in personal messages and other stuff that, hey man, this Ryan guy, he really broadened my horizons on that shit. So I'm glad that I'm glad that was not all for naught, that we have actually been able to broaden some people's horizons with that. So Ryan, thanks for everything as always. So let's get back into things here in the physical world from the holy shit, who could have seen that coming, but ha 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 department. Peppermint Patty, the circle back bitch, fucking Raggedy Ann, talking about Jen Psaki, tested positive for COVID. This just came out as of this morning. She has tested positive for COVID. Now, I know a lot of you are wanting to revel in it. Let me give you something real quick. You guys know that my best friend of 30 years passed from COVID. I want us to draw a distinction, not because I expect us to fucking fight with one hand tied behind our back, but I'm not going to be that guy that jumps and yells and yahoos whenever one of these jab Nazis comes down with COVID. I leave that to their wheelhouse. I leave that to them to be that kind of fucking scumbag where every time somebody who is vaccine reluctant, vaccine hesitant, English translation, has two brain cells to rub together and doesn't trust big pharma and the United States government, when those people come down with COVID, it's a slew of laughter, especially when they die from it. These people are showing you exactly who the fuck they are, and I don't want to be them. So having made that statement, little redhead Jen has come down with COVID. And of course, everyone goes all aflutter. Here's why I'm going to ask you to keep an eye on it, because the first thing that the troubleshooting and insulative mainstream media would have done under ordinary circumstances is to draw as wide a berth, as wide a space as possible between her and the acting cadaver in chief. One of the first things that they said when she tested positive was they started speculating on the last time that she saw Biden. So keep an eye out. I'm not going to go all Alex Jones on you, but when they're already bringing up that she last saw Biden on Tuesday and that she was within 6 feet of him unmasked, because the masks are pure theater, and once the cameras are off, they don't run like that. When they're already mentioning that, it would definitely save them the trouble of pulling the 25th Amendment thing. Also, in light of the rumors this week, and I'm not going to present this as fact because as of now, it's unsubstantiated rumors. The live feed of the meeting between Biden and the Pope this week was cut short. And the Twitter sphere for one, and some of the back channels. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that. Jerk. Uh, I want to be you when I grow up. Some of the back channels and definitely the Twitter sphere in and of itself has been alive with rumors that there was a bit of a potty accident. We all know, and this is why I always draw the distinction. Don't get mad at Biden. Biden has no clue what fucking day it is. He is a figurehead. He is the guy that they're dumping all of this on. His handlers are the ones that are making the decisions. But as of Biden himself, the man, Biden himself, the addled, staggering cadaver that manages to attend public functions. The word is that he had a bit of a bathroom accident in front of the Pope, and that's the reason why they had to cut the live feed. Now, I can't verify that, and I'm not going to give that a whole lot of energy, but I'm also not going to rule it out. You guys know how I do. I play a level across the board. It's like, do I think it happened? Not necessarily, but the more people in Rome that are talking about it, and the more back channel people that are finding out about it, the State Department people that are starting to leak it to different alternative sources, you can't exactly rule it out either, can you? Plus, everything about the guy is fucking suspect. Fuck. You know what? I've gone about as far down that road as we're going to. So anyway, Biden said that they were outside, masked, and 6 feet apart. I'm sure that's Ryan. I'm sure that's the official narrative. But I mean, how many times do we see that, on a weekly basis where, 1 minute he's saying, social distancing and he's doing all the theatrics when the cameras are rolling. And then when the cameras are rolling off to the side and he's doing close face-to-face meetings with his supporters or with random strangers and things like that. But again, this is not an area I wish to go down. I'm merely throwing it out to say, keep an eye on it. Because we know the long-term goal is to 25th Amendment his ass. And what's easier than 25th Amendmenting his ass? To Dealey Plaza his ass. So, and of course, you're not going to do it by way of 3 shots that didn't get fired from a book depository. But the virus, again, if he were, God forbid, horribly to croak off from the fucking virus, well, then it feeds right into the fucking narrative. Now it struck down a president, a great leader whose wisdom we cannot question. And we can already see the propaganda department working overtime. So just something to keep an eye on going forward. Okay. From the don't start none, won't be none, / you just got your bluff called, bitch department. So a fellow by the name of Beasley. Yes, David Beasley. A fellow by the name of David Beasley. Have you ever heard the name David Beasley before? Well, of course you haven't, because he's an insignificant little toad and a party apparatchik. However, his official position is the director of the United Nations Food Scarcity Organization. Now, I know that the popular line right now is, if only we could tax those billionaires and take their money, we could cover this program and that program. Well, in a dispatch from Abu Dhabi, Mr. Beasley came out and got really, really specific with it, really specific to the term of 1 billionaire, really specific to a percentage point, and really specific to a number of dollars that entailed. So good on him, at least for specificity. We've got to give credit where credit is due. He got specific. He didn't just do that vague virtue signaling. Yeah, man, tax the rich and fund the programs for the poor, the disadvantaged, and the marginalized. He didn't go for talking points. The dude got down to numbers, right? He called out my boy Elon, and you guys know, if you're friends or fans for any length of time, that I have 2 man crushes on this planet, 2 severe man crushes on this planet. One is Elon Musk. The other is Vladimir Putin. Yes, Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin, my 2 man crushes. Should probably tell you damn near everything you need to know about me. If you need some fine-tuned details, get with me in the PMs and I'll discuss it with you. But he got after my boy Elon, and Elon did not like it. He basically came out and said, and what was the actual quote? 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve world hunger. This is what Beasley said in a tweet and in a public dispatch and in a news release. 2%, just 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve world hunger. And if you think Elon Musk is the guy to roll over and play dead and let that virtue signal go unchallenged, I mean, Bezos would have. Bezos easily would have let it roll because he knows no one from the left is actually really, really, really going to try to come after his money. But Bezos would have let it go. Elon, not about to. So he said, okay, 2% of my wealth, huh, Sparky? He didn't say Sparky. That's my hashtag. But I imagine, because I love Elon, I imagine him saying the word Sparky. He said 2%. All right, Sparky, we'll call you on that. 2%. 2% of my wealth is about $6 billion. And last year, by your own records, you guys raised $8.4 billion. So why didn't you solve world hunger? That shut Beasley up for a minute. Beasley tried clapping back in a very weak manner, and Elon stepped up to the plate. As of today, this is the word that I'm getting. As of today, Elon stepped up and said, okay, fine. 2% of my wealth, I'll go better than that. I will go better than 2% of my wealth. I will give you out of my own pocket the full 8.4 billion that you guys generated last year. I'm going to give it to you. Sign off the check. The only condition is there has to be 100% transparency in how you spend it. Bravo, Mr. Musk. That is the way you deal with these bullshit virtue signalers. Oh, okay. You want to come for my money? We don't do enough. This percentage of that could do this. Why are we not good, moral people like you? That's the way you deal with it. He flat out said, okay, cool. You want my money? I'll give it to you. You're not even going to have to go through a government. You're not going to have to pass these broad, sweeping fucking things. And we already know Elon's position, and it is the correct position with regard to taxation and things like that. He was quoted this week, and he was quite correct in his assessment that, and it's almost a take on Margaret Thatcher's old quote. The problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. He basically said that, look, if the middle class thinks they're not going to be affected by this, that the thirst of the government beast is insatiable. And they can burn through all of Elon's wealth and all of Jeff Bezos's wealth and Bill Gates' wealth. And eventually they will come for you. Because there's just no end to it once you go down that. And, of course, the usual suspect is probably out there saying slippery slope fallacy. Here's your slippery slope, buddy. Let me grease that up a little bit for you. So that's the extent of it. So basically, Elon clapped back and said, hey, no, I'll give you the money. You just got to be transparent with it. And you see, that is the element. The devil is always in the details with these folks, with this infrastructure, quote unquote, bill that they're trying to pass right now. The devil is always in the details. And the last thing that they want, even though transparency is the buzzword that they will use for the controlled media, the last thing they want is actual transparency. So they're basically demanding that the government take money away from these billionaires to fund these programs. You got a billionaire that stepped up and said, you know what? I'll cut you a check. I'll cut you a check right fucking now. I'll do it. You want the money? You want to take my money? You want to take $8 billion of my money and spend it on these programs? I'll cut you a check right fucking now. The only condition I have is that I have to know, and every dollar has to be accounted for. And you see, that is the devil in the details that they want to avoid, because we always know out of the 8 billion, how much of that is going to the programs themselves, how much of that is going to the administration of, where you set up this big bureaucracy to handle how the money is dispersed instead of 5 fucking accountants, which could easily manage a project of that nature. You set up a bureaucracy with hundreds of little lackeys and apparatchiks and employees, and all of a sudden half of that 8 billion is going to pay the administration, and then another quarter gets used for the program itself, and then another quarter gets wasted. This is what happens. This is why, and Elon has always led by example. He's always led by example. Look at what he's done with SpaceX, right? The same amount of money could not have gotten near that much efficiency out of NASA. No way could NASA have accomplished with the same budget because of those huge bureaucracies. Granted, there's always a certain bureaucratic element to large corporations, but Elon has that narrowed down, and he's got it humming like a fucking machine. He is changing the future. He's the Nikola Tesla of our generation, and I love and admire the man for it. He's changing the fucking world. Out there changing the fucking world. Say what you want. Well, he takes government kickbacks and he does this and he does that. All right, yeah, okay, fine. And he's one of the wealthiest people on the planet. Yeah, all right, fine. What's your latest hit, Sparky? What's your latest hit? Because last I checked, he, before any of this got started, revolutionized the way people pay for things online. People without bank accounts suddenly had access to be able to pay for things online because of something that he created. And then he sold that, founded SpaceX, founded Tesla Motors. He's building electric cars. He's building batteries, not to the net effect of which will be to give everybody the ability to get off the fucking grid, right? The power wall. We don't need to do, again, the difference between what the private sector and what the government sector does with regard to the solar thing. They want to build this infrastructure where it's all these windmills and all these solar panels. And basically, we're going to keep the grid in place, but we're just going to fuel the grid with something else. I mean, granted, we're not going to get rid of the coal power plants or the gas power plants. We're not going to ask China to step up to any of those environmental things. We're not going to do any of that. But we're going to fuel the grid differently with all this, sustainable blah, 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 right? What is the private sector's approach to that? Elon is building it to where every home can be its own power plant. Every home to be its own power plant. The government will always want you connected to the grid. They may change the way that the grid is fueled. They may change the way the grid is administered, but they want you hooked into that grid. Elon says, no, fuck it. How about we let every house be its own fucking grid? And that's how he's changing the world. He's doing that with these cars. And what happens with Elon? Elon gives us the best electric car going, period, end of statement, done, with Tesla Motors. And the government comes out and says, yeah, we're going to build charging stations, but we're not going to favor that one. We're going to give contracts to everybody but Elon, because Elon won't play ball with us. Don't believe me, do your own homework. Anyway, went further down on that tangent street than I really wanted to, but you guys know the drill. You know how it ends. So let's move on to the next thing, shall we? From the holy fuck, I'm in the spotlight and twisting in the wind like a maggot on a fish hook again department. Attorney General Merrick Garland, once again, getting grilled in front of the other House of Congress this time. The House hearings didn't go as he expected, and the Senate fucking shredded him. Here is but one soundbite. You will remember, just to give some perspective, that Merrick Garland, while he can't be bothered to investigate legitimate threats like Antifa maggots that are burning cities and things like that, he can, even though the memo that it was based on got rescinded, he can weaponize the entire Department of Justice, including the FBI, to go after conservative parents at public schools that are concerned about what their kids are being taught. Here is just one example of how Mr. Garland got grilled this week.
We received a letter from the National Association of School Boards. No reason to believe
that you didn't receive an anonymous letter. White House political staff co-wrote it with this organization, which is why the organization has rejected it. You know these facts now to be true, and yet you still won't disavow your memo. Why? You didn't receive some objective, neutral letter because all these people were being threatened. You are responding to a political campaign to politicize the Department of Justice. How big is the threat that American parents pose right now? When you lead a big organization, you have 100,000 plus employees. You have a lot of violence to go after. Are parents at school boards one of the top 3 concerns you face right now?
We received.
And if you think Sass fucking grilled him, you should have heard the grilling that he took at the hands of Ted Cruz. But again, this is how the media will spin it. I sat, as I did with the previous set of hearings, and watched the entire hearing. I watched the entire goddamn thing because I wanted to make up my own fucking mind. I don't believe anything that comes out of the mouth of Tucker Carlson or the mouth of that Maddow guy. I don't believe either of those sides out of hand. I will take what they have to say. I will take information from different sources, but I wanted to see the whole fucking hearings to see what happened. And my God, they destroyed this man. And predictably, And look, we already know how Fox and Newsmax and OAN are going to cover things like this. We already know it. They are going to deliver. They're going to deliver their side. However, the three sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth, theirs actually happens to be the preponderance of what happened. Watching the mainstream media trying to clean this up for Merrick Garland was absolutely jaw-droppingly abhorrent. He got crushed. Merrick absolutely got crushed. The memo has been rescinded. The memo on which the entire FBI drive and DOJ drive was based on was rescinded by the very people that issued it. And they basically copped to it. It's like, yeah, Biden administration sent us this stuff and wrote a memo. But Ted Cruz basically was like, he was like, look, dude, I'm looking at 15 incidents that you gave as justifications. And the first 12 right off the top of my head involved no violence at all. Calling people names, giving a Nazi salute. And the way that they spun that was Cruz saying that Cruz was providing cover for Nazis. Basically, the long and the short of it was this. Somebody gave a Nazi salute at one of these rallies. They were basically doing this in response to you will wear your mask. Oh, okay, Sieg Heil. It was a sarcastic thing. Well, of course, the mainstream media turns this around to where Cruz is protecting Nazis. Why? Because the last thing anyone can afford to be in the media spotlight these days is a racist and a white supremacist. And we all know the drill. So, and anything that I say is clearly going to be a dog whistle. Anyway, so we'll sneak that in. Yes, Mike, you're absolutely right. Hashtag intellectual gymnastics. Let me see. In fact, I think I've actually got that. Here we go. Bang, bang. Hashtag intellectual gymnastics. That, by the way, for you guys unfamiliar with some of the Reverend Bart hashtags, intellectual gymnastics is one of my favorite. It's also the most popular of my hashtags on any of the social media right now. You can Google hashtag intellectual gymnastics and a whole lot of my posts will pop up. And I will generally assign it a level from some famous gymnastic performance in days of yore. Like someone will do something that's a little bit twisted up and I'll be like, intellectual gymnastics level 76 Nadia on the balance beam, or intellectual gymnastics level 72 Olga Corbett uneven parallel bars. Again, just because I've got that much useless information floating around in my head. Anyway, thank you for your patience and indulging me on that. Yes, intellectual gymnastics. I'm going to put the scroll bar down at the bottom. The scroll bar down at the bottom will tell you all of my other social media sources. I don't know which one you guys are watching on. I got some people on YouTube, some people on Twitter, some people technically not Tanya Harding. That's figure skating, Mike, but good try. Some of you guys are watching on Facebook, some of you guys on Twitter, some of you guys on YouTube, and covering all that stuff. So, all right. So we're all familiar by this point. We have to all be familiar at this point with Let's Go, Brandon. Is it sophomoric? Yes. Is it delightfully immature? Yes. Is it irreverent? Kinda. Is it disrespectful of the presidency? Certainly. Is it even coming close to rising to the level of what we were forced to endure for the last 4 years from the other side? Of course not. But again, getting back to the things that I posted at the beginning of the program, these are just two of the hashtags that are trending. Apparently, a Southwest Airlines pilot, as part of his sign-off, said, "Let's go, Brandon." I heard one of the so-called recordings. Whether or not it was the actual recording, I don't know. It was on MSNBC, so I'm not taking their fucking word for it. But even if he signed off with all the things that are saying and included the words, "Let's go, Brandon," I mean, this kind of thing, this is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I mean, this tweet here from Chris Hine, that he's sympathizing with terrorists for saying, "Let's go, Brandon." The origin of "Let's go, Brandon," by the way, is a joke. We all know that Mr. most popularly elected president in the history of the United States, Mr. 81 million votes, Mr. got more black votes in Detroit than Obama did, and nothing suspicious about that. Yes, we're talking about the cadaver in chief. sports stadiums all over the country, whether we're talking college football, whether we're talking NASCAR events, whether, by this point, it's probably down to lacrosse. I mean, who fucking knows? But sports stadiums all over the country are erupting in chants of fuck Joe Biden, fuck Joe Biden, fuck Joe Biden. And thinking quickly, an NBC operative, apparatchik, reporter, yeah, that's what they call themselves, tried to cover it at a NASCAR race, and she was interviewing one particular driver, and you could hear it. The stadium's thunder. Fuck Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden. She decided to run interference for it. She was like, yeah, you can hear the chants of support. Let's go, Brandon. I mean, we're already into Pravda territory here. Pravda and TASS would be very, very proud. We're already into that territory. This kind of thing, the MAGA version of See How, get fucking bent. But it was so funny in the desperation of trying to cover. It was so unintentionally funny because, look, we all see it. We see and we hear a stadium full of people saying fuck Joe Biden. We all know that the guy didn't get 81 million votes. We all know that there's some shysty shit going on, but you guys are so devout in, talking about sticking to the narrative. You guys keep repeating the big lie. Bro, bit of a projection problem there. Let's Go Brandon. Yeah. So anyway, Let's Go Brandon took on a life of its own, since it's not really polite in a lot of company these days to say fuck Joe Biden or fuck any president. I mean, besides Donald Trump, you can say fuck Trump at the Academy Awards and be cheered on. You can be Rashida Tlaib and say, we're going to impeach the motherfucker, and have MSNBC have you on the next day and give you 10 minutes to justify why it was totally okay that you said that about the president of the United States. And you know what? Here's what it is to be principled. I agree. I absolutely agree. No matter who you are and no matter who is in that Oval Office, the ability to say, fuck the president to his face, to walk up to Donald Trump or to Joe Biden or to whoever came before or whoever's going to come after and say, Mr. President, go fuck yourself. That's what it is to live in a free society, boys and girls. The thing about living in a free society, though, is when the political winds shift and you find yourself on the other side of that, you have to extend the same courtesy to your political rivals, your political enemies. And we all know that it's not exactly the forte of the left to allow that sort of ideological consistency and intellectual honesty. So, of course, they're raging about it. Those were just a couple of the tweets that I gave you, trying to compare Let's Go Brandon to domestic terrorism. There was another tweet, and I couldn't download it. I didn't have time to download it before the program. There was another one that said that a MAGA cult member who is radicalized enough to say let's go Brandon over the intercom of that plane is radicalized enough to fly that plane into the ground or into a building to make a political point. No, they said that. These people don't live in the same world that we do. And again, in their world, this is a constitutionally protected joke. And once again, I agree. Specificity counts, Sparky. Specificity counts. This is absolutely protected speech. If she were posing like this and saying, this is what I wish would happen to this specific person, and I want for someone to go out and do this for real, then we're into the threat zone. Then we're into matters of legality. But just posing, is it dumb? Yes. Is it counterproductive? Yes. Did it alienate and get every bit the backlash that it fucking deserved? Yes. See, that's the burden of free speech. This right here is constitutionally protected. It is. That's what it is to be principled. The flip side of that is the same First Amendment that protects her right to do something that's stupid is the First Amendment that protects my right to go. I think it'd be funny as hell to see her tied to a fence post and gang raped by a pack of rabid Dobermans. Yeah. See, I can say that. The First Amendment permits me to say that. What I couldn't do is take it one step further and say, I would like for this Doberman handler to meet this person at this fence post, tie them to do it, and I will, then we're into the threat zone. Yeah. But again, the left would not know a principled argument if it bit them in their ass. And if it weren't for double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. What it really comes down to with the left is the only fetish that they're willing to indulge is this one. Govern me harder, daddy. Govern me harder. I'll leave that up for a second. That one was thrown to me by way of Patty Chen. Patty, you are still my favorite, mama. You know this, you know this, you know this. Let me pull that off. Just kind of throwing that out there just for fun. But yeah, they're getting more and more desperate. And Let's Go Brandon, the song, reached number one. Reached number one on iTunes. Knocked Adele out of the top spot. What happened? Platforms started banning it. Twitter will shadow ban you. TikTok outright banned it. Of course, TikTok is going to outright ban it because TikTok is a Chinese company and they don't like the fact that their compromised puppet is getting called out like that. So let's say, yeah. David, just for you, buddy. Just for you. I know you're a big fan of Sparky. Sorry about your narrative there, Sparky. All right. But yeah, they're getting desperate. There was a guy in the Midwest. I didn't have time to download the story before we went to air, but you guys can find it. A guy in the Midwest was trying to do one of those flight banners, where the plane drives and it flies and it's got the banner waving behind it. It was a Let's Go Brandon banner, and the FAA at the last minute pulled the permit for him to fly that banner. Political content and incitement. Right. What's incitement about? I mean, first of all, what's incitement about fuck Joe Biden? There's nothing inciting violence about that. It's just a statement. But when it becomes a joke, like Let's Go Brandon, a perfectly innocuous statement that's a joke on a joke. Next week, Ryan, I promise. Next week, we'll get into Boy and Slat. I promise. That'll be the rabbit hole next week. But yeah, an innocuous statement like Let's Go Brandon. And that's hate speech. That's, again, we're into the area of thought crime. It's really kind of frightening. NPR took it and created an entire article out of it. And you can find that npr.org, npr.org, updated today. Here's what Let's Go Brandon actually means and how it made its way to Congress. Who's using the chant and the meme? And you've already got what buzzwords? Come on. Who's using the chant and the meme? What buzzwords have we got? What buzzwords? Who's using it? And what is it? It's here, puppy. It's a dog whistle. According to NPR, and the people that are using it are dangerous, radicalized, right-wing extremists that have ties, if not outright involved with, come on, two words, first words of color, white supremacy. Always with the white supremacy. Always with the white supremacy. Here's how desperate they are. Here's how desperate they are. And happy Samhain right back to you, Brother Ryan. Thank you very much. I don't know if you caught the very beginning of the program. We did a little bit on that. Here's the dangerous part. As far as the desperation. When you are to a point, let me touch on Kyle Rittenhouse real quick, because we got about 5 minutes here. I want to just touch very briefly on a development in the Rittenhouse thing, and then we'll get back into the main point, which is the desperation and why we're winning, why we should feel good about this. This was said by the This was said by the prosecutor at the Kyle Rittenhouse hearing. A little update in the Rittenhouse hearing. You guys are familiar with Kyle Rittenhouse, the guy that shot 3 maggots in self-defense in Kenosha, Wisconsin, who performed admirably under pressure. Any of my tactical trainers on here that watched the way that kid performed under pressure, if I was the guy that trained that kid, I'd be putting him on my fucking sales brochures. That kid handled himself unbelievably well under some massive fucking pressure. Little sawed off 5'4", 130-pound kid. Again, we can get into. You know what? No. I'm gonna give Kyle his props. They singled him out because he was the smallest guy of the small group that stopped them from pushing a flaming dumpster into gas pumps, which will be addressed by the soundbite. He was the smallest guy, and that's why they chased him. 2 guys lost their lives and 1 guy lost his fucking bicep for it. And he only fired on people that were immediate threats, did not miss with a single round that he unleashed from that weapon. And inside of the space of 1 magazine, dispatched 2 maggots to the afterlife and took the arm off of another one who was seconds away from putting a pistol to Kyle's head and killing him. Has admitted as much. And he did it while being beaten with skateboards, while rolling over from bad positions, while half-seated, firing up, while flat on his back, rolling sideways. The kid was amazing. So he's on trial for his life, naturally, because of the people he shot, which are, of course, irredeemable leftist maggots. And so here's what the prosecutor said. The judge said that they could not be referred to as victims. That's right. First of all, the 2 that died, at least 1 was a child sex offender, convicted. But the judge said that they could not be referred to as victims because victim was a loaded word and it implied that he was guilty. And this is what the prosecutor had to say with regard to that they really were victims because I mean, they weren't waving guns around at everybody, just at Kyle, and it was just arson. Yeah, the flaming dumpster being pushed towards live gas pumps was just arson. No big deal. You can hear the prosecutor and you can hear how the judge responds. Here we go.
And if there were any evidence in this case, and I would love to hear it, but I haven't seen it. If there was any evidence in this case that Mr. Rosenbaum physically attacked anyone else that night, chased anyone else that night, assaulted anyone else that night, threatened anybody with a weapon that night, we can talk about that. But I don't hear any evidence to that effect. All we're talking about is arson. We're talking about being loud and disorderly. We're talking about, being.
I can't believe some of the things you're saying. And
alleged to
all
be a
we're
riot.
talking about is arson. Come on.
See, the judge wasn't hearing it. That's why it's good news for Kyle. And that's why it's good news for all of us going forward. And this will lead me into my closer. I'm probably going to run a couple minutes over here. So go ahead and saddle up. You guys are used to it by now. The judge ain't hearing it. We're just talking about arson. Okay. It's a flaming dumpster being pushed at gas pumps. But we're just talking about arson as if that weren't a big enough deal on its own. But the judge ain't hearing it and the judge ain't playing into it. And there's a really, really good chance that Kyle is going to walk. Why? Because the same maggot mob that intimidated the Minneapolis jury into putting the screws to Chauvin, they're not going for it. And they're not going to be as intimidated. The Kenosha guys, they're not going to fucking play into it. That's the only hope that they have. And of course, this is the 2 things that I wanted to get into and close with. They're getting desperate. Once this happened, the Twitter sphere, the leftist blogosphere, even mainstream media commentators on the left started alluding to, depending on format, either alluding to or outright stating the dangers of what's going to happen, what the public's reaction could be. Oh my God, we could probably anticipate violence if Rittenhouse is allowed to go free. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing. And Denise, I have contributed twice already to that fund. Guys, if you can find that online, put your money where your rhetoric is. I have supported the Kyle Rittenhouse Defensive Support Fund. You can find that and dump them $100 if you have it to give. But here's the thing. They are threatening violence. Without threatening violence, it's, oh, if Rittenhouse is allowed to go free, if the jury finds him not guilty, what are the chances we could see more violence in Kenosha? This is how desperate they're getting. Okay? The DOJ has been weaponized against concerned parents that are standing up for the sanctity of what is being taught to their kids. Okay? The corporations and the media that protects those corporate agendas are having to resort to more and more desperate means to cover what we all know, that the reason why airlines are canceling flights has nothing to do with weather and everything to do with the vaccine mandates causing employees to walk off the job. Same with the first responders. They can say, oh, it's not a big deal, and then 8 stations close. They're getting more and more desperate in their attempts to control the narrative. And when it comes to the media, they're getting more and more desperate in their attempts, again, stimulus response. You control the stimulus, you control the response. You control the perception, you control people's reality. To control the perception, to control the narrative, to control the stimulus, and therefore the response. They're getting more and more desperate. They're coming with harder and harder mandates that are less and less easily enforced. They're coming with bigger and bigger stories, and they realize that their narrative has failed. They have a judge that is actually taking a stand for the Constitution, a stand for the rule of law, and protecting this kid, playing it level across the board. Now, later testimony, he was pretty harsh on Rittenhouse and a couple of other things, and chances are he will let the weapons charge stand. But as far as the murder charges and the attempted murder charges, kid's going to walk. So what are they resorting to? They're resorting to implied threats of violence, suggestions of violence, thumping their chest, doing everything short of saying there will be violence. Because they know how to play the constitutional game. As we said last week, the one thing that the left is good at is that they stay on message and they stay fucking unified. Yes, they eat their own. But only when their own fall off message. This is the rule of the orthodoxy. This is acceptable dialogue. This is acceptable party line. You fall off of that, you're no longer one of us. You're no longer one of the church of woke. You're no longer one of the lunatic left. We don't need you. You're not part of the maggot mob. And now they're getting desperate. Mainstream commentators suggesting that Ashley Babbitt was a trained killer because she was in the United States Air Force. Mainstream media commentators suggesting that if Kyle Rittenhouse is allowed to walk free, that there will be violence in the streets. 2 things that I want you guys to take from this. Number 1, banning, the FAA coming down and forbidding a plane to fly with a banner that says, "Let's go, Brandon." Calls for people that are saying "Let's go, Brandon" to be branded as domestic terrorists, the same way concerned parents are with a weaponized DOJ and soon to be a weaponized IRS. Media outright running cover for the maggot mob as they have for a year, and now it's getting worse. 2 things to take from this, folks. We could get blackpilled over the way that, they have been able to seize the narrative and take control of the national dialogue. We get blackpilled about that. But not here, motherfucker. Not here. Here, we take solace in that because it means we're fucking winning. It means we're winning. When they have reached a point beyond bankruptcy in the marketplace of ideas, when they know that we are getting to see their agenda fail and fall apart in front of our eyes in real time. And we know, and this is what it is right now on a state level in places like California and New York and Illinois, and they move to advance this agenda to a national level enforced by the federal government, and we reject it. We're pushing back. We're getting to see the end result in real time, and more people are saying no. It's a brilliant thing watching the fence sitters fall off and consistently land on our side. So take solace in that. Don't get caught up in the negative. Don't get caught up in the things that they're trying to do, because the whole thing is to demoralize you. The whole idea of this thing is to demoralize you with things like shortages, lockdowns, mandates. Aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid? Everything you want in your life is on the other side of fear. And fear, as we know, is a liar. So don't be afraid of all these things coming down the pike. And don't be afraid of the things that they vaguely threaten with that could happen if certain things go certain ways. Don't be afraid of these things. Don't be afraid of anything. Your heart, your spine, your balls, bring them all to the party. And when the maggot mob tries flexing and tries to make you bend the knee or bend your spirit, 3 words: knuckle up, bitch. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. That's it. I know I'm about 6 minutes over right now, and I don't apologize for that. We try to squeeze it down for an hour, but I'm working alone. I don't have a producer. It's just me with a laptop, a camera, and a microphone. Camera and the microphone, courtesy of Mike. Thanks again for being here. I want to thank all of y'all for coming out. Every single, especially the new faces. The new faces, it's always good to see. Because that means that the word's getting out, I look around and see a lot of new faces. You're breaking the first 2 rules of Fight Club. The first 2 rules of Reverend's Club. Reverend says this. First 2 rules of Reverend's Club is: rule number 1, spread the fucking word. Rule number 2, in all caps, spread the fucking word. So get it out there, man. Get it out there. Share it with some people. Let them know that this fat old toothless cripple rants and raves for an hour every Sunday, and that he's a like-minded, a kindred spirit. Maybe you guys will get something out of it. In the meantime, between time, I want to thank y'all for coming out. We're going to close, as we always do, with a little bit of Clutch. Neil Fallon and Clutch, Fortunate Son. Closer music, another suggestion from the one and only Ryan Jenkins. Appreciate you being out there, brother. You've been with me from the beginning. I love you. And I love each and every one of you out there too, man. All of y'all. Happy to have you on board, man. I'm going to pass around the digital collection plate. I'm on Facebook Pay. I'm on Cash App. I'm on Venmo, all the different stuff. You can get my details if you want to throw me some coin. That would be great. If anything that I said helped or changed your view or gave you some new information, or throw me a little coin, it's fantastic. If you can't do that, or you're not inclined to do that, here's what else you can do for me. Like I said, spread the word. Talk to your guys that are like minds and kindred spirits. Get them on board. Tell them about the program, and share the program on your own social media. Share the replay, man. Share it on your Facebook, your Twitter, whatever, man. Spread the word. Bigger we go, the more people we reach, the more hearts and minds we can touch. That's what we're all about. Above and beyond everything else, remember the prime directives. You guys have got it down and committed to memory by this point. Remember the prime directives. Be the signal, not the noise. Be the light in a world full of darkness. And as always, the iron rule is to be that strength in a world full of weakness. You're going to go out standing with your knuckles up, chin down, head forward, man. Weapon out and belly in. In the words of a famous prophet. But anyway, we're going to win this thing, y'all. We're ahead of the curve. The narrative's failing, their agenda's failing, everything's collapsing around them. We got to have the strength to push forward and give it that final shove into the abyss and make sure it never stands up again. And we're going to do it, y'all. We're going to win this thing. I love you. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. See you next Sunday, y'all. Love you. Peace.